Good afternoon. My name is Ces Butner, and I have the honor to serve as this year's president of Rotary Club of Oakland. Founded in 1908, the Rotary Club of Oakland is the third oldest Rotary Club of some 35,000 Rotary clubs throughout the world. We are a community of 300 men and women from all walks of Oakland civic, commercial, and community life, committed to the Rotary motto of service above self. I'd like to welcome you to our 5,311th club meeting. And for over 111 years, we have welcomed Rotarians and guests from around the world to our club meetings. We continue to do so virtually. So if you're visiting Rotarian, or if you're a guest of a Rotarian, please let us know by typing your name and the name of your club into the chat box located at the center bottom of your screen, as indicated by the red arrow on the slide you're viewing now. By doing so, we will be able to recognize you later in the meeting. Also, we recommend that all participants view this Zoom meeting by clicking the Speaker View button located in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. And if you have any comments throughout the meeting or questions for the speaker, please use the chat button at the bottom of the screen for that as well. And now for our thought for the day, Rotarian Pam Clausen.
Thank you, President Ces. Our thought for the day is a quote from an interview with Dr. Joshua Bamberger, who was a featured speaker at Oakland Rotary last year. There is a lot of research showing that housing the homeless in permanent supportive homes is cost effective. While these studies are important, they're not going to change the way we as a society treat underserved and marginalized communities. No cost-saving study is going to change anything if we as a society believe that people experiencing homelessness are not worth saving. All life is of value, and every person deserves the basic dignity of having a place to live. This attitude not only improves the lives of the people we house, it also sets a standard of decency across our society that helps us all live just lives. Back to you, President Ces.
Thank you for that appropriate thought for the day. Because we want to remain grounded and focused, we begin our meetings by jointly reciting our vision, which is, now everybody together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. Hope you enjoyed last week's meeting that featured Alameda County Superintendent of Schools, Karen Monroe, who explained the vital role the county plays in supporting our school districts. Today, we will hear from Rotarian John Holmgren, of the chair of our Kinderprep Committee, and the wonderful work that they're doing with our young people in this COVID-19 pandemic world. In addition, we have a speaker to inform you about the homeless situation in Alameda County, something you know is a concern of mine. So sit back and enjoy another Civic Thursday meeting, where you can catch a great speaker and get involved with Rotary, where service above self exists. So let's get started with the meeting with our Business Development Committee sponsor this week, who is none other than Rotarian Linda Hamilton.
Thank you, Ces. All right, I am so pleased to sponsor today's meeting. Most of you know that I am the author of our history book, Stories to Last. Oops, what happened here? There we go. Let me get this going again. All right, can you see my screen? All right, and I'm also, okay, do that again. All right, I'm also an award-winning writer, and I don't know what's happening in my slideshow, so we'll just do it this way. But today I wanted to tell you about my business, Stories to Last. In 2006, I started helping individuals, families, and organizations and businesses to share their stories in beautiful books, videos, timelines, and podcasts. After 14 years, I've written or edited and produced over 40 books and several videos, and it's truly a pleasure to bring these to life. I got started doing this because I love stories. I've been fascinated with history and humanity. Also, my grandmother, when I was a young adult, my grandma Bessie died. And she was born in Russia and immigrated to New York. And I never learned her story. And I was very sad about that. So I wanted to help other people to save their stories. I truly believe in this Mark Twain quote: every life story is fascinating. Why? Well, when you think about it, every life story is a journey. It's a hero's journey. Stories are as old as humankind. We're hardwired for them. We think in stories. We tell them to ourselves all day long. We remember stories, and stories outlive us. Stories are even good for our brains, activating hormones that do great things for us emotionally and physically. So stories are incredibly powerful. To pull out these stories, I work both with people who start with nothing, and through fun and guided interviews, I gather the raw content to get us started, or I work with people who do their own writing. Then there's research, crafting great narrative with authentic voice and custom design to end up with a family treasure for generations to come, or published books and other media. And the same is true for organizations and businesses. I provide whatever part of the process is needed, and all of it is equally fun, so I'm very fortunate. And I believe in the importance of it. I encourage everyone to save their stories or the stories of those you love in any way. Telling your story is an act of sharing. It can even take courage to reflect on the harder stuff. Sharing of our stories connects us, it personifies history, it teaches and inspires, and it really allows us to get to know each other and ourselves. And that's why I create Stories to Last. Thank you for having me, President Ces.
Well, thank you for that introduction to your business and what you do and how it relates to us at Rotary number 3. Now, past District Governor Ed Jelen, do we have visiting Rotarians or guests?
Hello, President Ces. We do have some very distinguished guests with us here today, which it is my pleasure and privilege to introduce. First of all, Kimberly Cohen brought a guest with her. So we'll all welcome Al Gilbert, who is the CEO of the Felton Institute. So welcome, Al.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. And then Keith Uriarte brought a very distinguished guest with him today, a member of the Oakland City Council representing District 4. So let's all welcome Sheng Tao. Welcome, Councilmember Tao, to be with us today. Great to have you.
Hello.
And that's it, Ces.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you, all of the guests who are visiting us today. We have a tradition of transitioning our red badge to blue new members to blue badge, fully engaged members, when that member completes certain tasks, which are attend a new member orientation, join a committee, make a giving commitment to Rotary Foundation or Rotary Endowment, and finally, to give their 3-minute self-introduction. And today, we have 2 Rotarians in their final phase, Bryan and Emily Morgan, who will be giving their 3-minute introduction. First, we'll have Emily.
Well, thank you very much. I'm the lucky one who gets to go first. So it's really hard to believe, but my husband, Bryan, and I have first joined Rotary back in 2017. We were still just dating at the time, but we bonded over our shared desire to give back to our community. So I reached out to a family friend who you all know so well, Ed Jelen, and he took us both to our first Rotary meeting. We were immediately hooked, and we knew that it was the right club for us to join. Since then, we've gotten married, we had 2 kids, and we have another one on the way due next March. So thank you to Pat for continuing to stay on us to finally get our 3-minute intro scheduled. We've literally had our hands full for the last couple of years. So just a short history about me. I'm a 5th-generation Californian, and I grew up in Piedmont. I went to boarding school in Utah and then college down in UC San Diego. But I've always loved the Bay Area, and I came back as soon as I could. So when I was finished with school, I started applying for jobs. And while I was doing that, I was working part-time for my family's business, Ashby Lumber. The short version of the story is I never left. So my grandfather started Ashby Lumber back in 1968. My mom and uncle took over running the company when he passed suddenly in 1984. So you could essentially say that I did grow up in the business, as I spent many holiday breaks and summers just hanging around the Berkeley location while my mom worked. My introduction to the company was working in various positions to get hands-on experience. My mom and uncle have since retired, and I officially took over as CEO of the company in September of last year. I was 5 months pregnant with our son at the time, so I went on maternity leave in January. Then COVID happened in March, and we found out we were expecting again in May. So it's safe to say that it's been a very, very busy year for us. But we've been very lucky that home improvement is one of the booming industries since COVID hit. And it's really, really been heartbreaking hearing story after story of small businesses who haven't made it through. Anyway, I really loved being a part of Rotary. I've met some really wonderful people and I've made some important business connections. It's been a great club and I'm so glad to finally have this intro off of my plate and become a full member. So thanks again, and hopefully me and my husband Brian, who's going next, don't repeat too many of the same stories.
Very good. Brian, let's hear your 3-minute introduction.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bryan Morgan. Unfortunately, Emily and I did write our introductions separately, so you're going to hear quite a few things twice, but we think they bear repeating. So I was born in Santa Rosa, but grew up mostly in Chico. While I was there, I worked for about 10 years for an e-commerce retailer, mostly in marketing and business development. At the same time, I also served in the National Guard and took a few breaks from my career to do tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. About 6 years ago, I grew tired of the small town life and moved down to Oakland. I changed careers and moved into finance and now work as a director of finance for Sephora in San Francisco. But more accurately, I work as a director of finance for Sephora out of my own home in Oakland. I met my wife, Emily, who you just heard all about, in 2016, and we quickly realized that each other was the one. In a little over 4 years that we have known each other, we met, fell in love, got married, had 2 kids, and now Emily is pregnant with our 3rd child. To say it's been a fast ride would be an understatement, but when you know it's right, you dive right in. As I mentioned, we have 2 beautiful children. Mary is a fiery little redhead with bright blue eyes. She's coming up on her 2nd birthday and has just started telling us all the little things that have been rattling around in her head that she couldn't express until now. Her little brother Luke just turned 8 months old, and he's the happiest, smiliest baby we ever could have hoped for. He adores his big sister and follows her around every chance he gets. Normally, I'd say that we are both active people who love to get out, go on walks, hike, travel, etc. But with COVID and having 2 little ones, most of our time is spent playing with them and making sure they're both happy and engaged. It's definitely a lot of work, but more fulfilling than we ever could have imagined. We both discovered Rotary through Emily's family friend that I'm sure you all know, Ed Jellin, and look forward to making the most of it just as soon as this whole pandemic is over.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Emily and Brian, for those informative introductions. When we return to in-person meetings, your shiny new blue badge indicating your completion of permanent requirements, member requirements, is waiting on you. Congratulations. Kim Cohen, I understand you have an announcement to make.
Thank you, President Ces. I'm so delighted to be here today. And as Ed Jellin introduced, the CEO of the Felton Institute, Al Gilbert, is my new boss. I'm very excited to announce that I am the Director of Deaf Community Counseling Services with Felton Institute. Felton's been around for 131 years. Al has been a senior leader there for 17 years. He's now the CEO. And I'm just really thrilled to ring the bell in honor of 2 things. First, I would be remiss if I didn't thank my former employer, Family Paths, and all of you Rotarians who have really supported my work there and supported the larger initiatives that Family Paths has successfully completed during my 7 years in Rotary. And thank you all for continuing your support, welcoming me now as a Rotarian representing the Felton Institute. Thank you, and you can celebrate ringing the bell with sign language celebrations, with your hands, or any visual gesture. So
all right, let me ring the bell.
2 rings, please.
That's what I did, ring the bell twice. Thank you so,
Seth.
Thank you so much, Kimberly Cohen. Rotarian Jason Weiselman from Membership Committee. I understand you have an exciting announcement.
I do. You know, I'm not good with sign language. If any of you knows me, I just like to talk a lot. So I'm going to tell you people that October starts today, and we are doing a guest drive, a opt-in. We're all in it together. Every one of us has to bring a guest at least once this month. I'm going to put in the chat box a link to what will also be sent to you for a Google Doc so you can register your guests. We want them here. People, the more the merrier. You want this face on your computers? If you don't, get a guest here and I won't come back and talk about this again. But until that happens, opt in. October, we're opting in. Opt in, get it? Get your guests here. Thanks, Ces.
Thank you. Speaking of new members, we are inducting a new member today. He will be introduced by a sponsor with 2 interesting facts about our newest Rotarian. Past President John Propopis, his sponsor.
President Ces, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Fellow Rotarians and guests, it is my great honor and pleasure today to introduce Stephen Murphy as the newest member of Oakland Rotary number 3. Stephen is president and CEO of Cristo Rey de La Salle East Bay High School, which is a low to no cost college prep Catholic school in the Fruitvale district of Oakland. Before that, Stephen was associate director and then director of the Family Justice Center, which is a division of the district attorney's office. By the way, his grandfather and father were Rotarians. So he's following in the family tradition. 2 interesting facts about Stephen. The first, at age 46, he took up the grappling martial art of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And he doesn't regret it, but his knees, elbows, and neck definitely regret the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The second interesting fact is I'm excited about because I met Stephen 23 years ago when he was we were both working together on the Jerry Brown for Mayor campaign. And the second interesting fact is that he was one of Jerry's roommates in the room right next door to him. So he's definitely got some stories to tell all of you when we meet in person. Please join me in welcoming Stephen Murphy as the newest member of Oakland Rotary number 3.
Yeah, let's get the round of applause. Stephen, we are happy that you have chosen to join us. And please know that your family and friends are always welcome to join us and participate in our projects and events. By accepting membership, you have adopted our vision, which is, as we said before, together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. You also agree to conduct your affairs according to the Rotary 4-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all? You will receive your Rotary pin, and we hope you will wear it with pride and find pleasure and fulfillment by attending meetings, participating in our service activities, practicing service above self, and by contributing to the Rotary Foundation and Oakland Rotary Endowment. You'll also receive via mail a roster with 300 of your newest best friends and Rotary Made Easy handbook, your 4-way test, and our Centennial book, which documents 100 years of service and friendship in the 3rd oldest club in the Rotary world, Oakland number 3. Finally, when we return to live meetings, your red badge will be waiting on you, indicating your status as a new member. So now it is my pleasure and privilege to induct you as our newest member of the Rotary Club of Oakland. Let's give our newest member a warm Rotary welcome. Yay, virtually. Congratulations, Stephen. We appreciate it. Next, we got past President Carla Betts from the Entertainment Committee has an announcement. Is Carla with us?
Carla's here and has big news.
Okay.
We are having a Cocktails with the President on Thursday, October 8th at 5:30 p.m. Who knows when it'll end. We are celebrating Cess's roots. That would be the state of Missouri. So we have acquired 3 special cocktails that are Missouri cocktails. And the recipes will be sent to everyone in the club so that we can be ready for our cocktail party. There are also non-alcoholic, oh my gosh, look at the pictures. There are non-alcoholic recipes as well. You will also be receiving some very interesting facts about Missouri. Food for thought for our cocktail party. So next Thursday, October 8th at 5:30 p.m., we'll be joining to celebrate Seth and his roots. And one last thing, please put this on your calendar because on Sunday, October 25th, October 25th, we're going to have a surprise for the club, sort of an afternoon get together. Thank you, Seth.
Thank you, Carla. Past President Carla. I've always been respectful.
Yes.
And now Kinderprep
Yes.
Committee Chair,
Yes.
John Holgren.
Yes.
Yes,
Are
yes.
we going to get a Zoom link, or is someone going to send us an email about the drinks with the president?
Yes, you will. I'm sure Carla has it all taken care of. So you'll receive the Zoom link when we have that too. And it's 5:30 next Thursday. Is when it is. And now Kinderprep Committee Chair John Holgren is here to bring us up to date with what's going on with Kinderprep.
Thank you, President Ces. Well, normally this time of year, our classroom volunteers are just settling into their classrooms, getting to know the kids' names, getting a rapport going with the teacher in order to support transitional kindergarten teachers for the year. Obviously, this year we couldn't do that. What we usually do later in the year is we provide gift cards to the teachers from Lakeshore Learning so that they can augment their classroom teaching materials with things that the district does not provide so that they don't have to use their own funds for that purpose. We've had to pivot this year, and we're in the process right now of putting together virtual learning kits for every transitional kindergarten class in Oakland, where there's approximately 20 items that are provided to every child to facilitate virtual learning. We are also accelerating our gift card program where the teachers will be given these cards earlier than they normally would be because they probably already know that there are some areas where they are lacking in the things that they need to properly teach their children. So those are immediate projects we're doing right now that will be implemented in the next week or two. Beyond that, we're looking into ways that our volunteers can participate in a virtual way. In my classroom, for example, next week, I will be doing 2 one-hour sessions with groups of children, teaching them letters, numbers, reading, and so on. And we're going to give that a try. That's sort of a pilot project. And if that works, we'll be rolling that out to everybody else. We're excited that that should be increasing our opportunities for volunteers in the classroom, because up until now, people had to go through a fairly significant vetting process in order to become a classroom volunteer. And some people were deterred from volunteering, partially because of that, and partially because of not being able to take the time to leave their jobs, go to a classroom, etc. Now this will be able to be done virtually. And so people, instead of taking several hours at a time for a volunteer assignment or effort, one will be able to do that from the comfort of their office or home. And so I would expect that we'll be able to greatly increase the ability of Rotarians to participate in the important area of transitional kindergarten education. So that's pretty much my report for now. The field trips that we normally would be starting to work on that take place in the spring, it's unknown whether those will take place at all or if they'll be able to be done in a virtual way. More to come on that subject later in the year.
Thank you so much, John. That's your work with Kinderprep is always so fascinating to me because we still do it even though we're in this virtual world. And I think your committee is doing great. I think if your trial works out, we may need some more members of your committee.
Absolutely.
And if we do, they, you know who to contact. John Holman, the committee chair for Kinderprep.
People wouldn't necessarily have to join the committee and commit to that, but if they would commit to be volunteers, that is definitely something we'd like to have, and I'll be getting you more information as it's available.
Thank you so much. That's great. Now, Rotarian Sonia Fritz, will you do us the honor of introducing our Civic Thursday speaker?
I will. Hi, Seth. Sonia Fitz here. And I'm very pleased to introduce Michelle Starratt. Michelle has 20 years of experience in housing and community development between her current role as housing director for Alameda County and housing efforts with UC Berkeley, in Oakland, Napa, and San Luis Obispo. So if there's any question you've ever had about why there isn't enough affordable housing in our community, why we can't get more built more quickly, and just generally why our systems are failing to house the homeless in the numbers needed, chances are Michelle has looked into that question in depth at some point. Michelle is also a volunteer board member with Alameda County Deputy Sheriff's Activities League, whose programs serve over 1,500 local low-income children. Welcome, Michelle, and thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. This is a really exciting meeting, and I've never participated in a Rotary Club meeting before, and so I'm really pleased to be here. Is it possible for me to share my screen? I don't have a PowerPoint, but I have some resources that I'd like to share with folks, specifically because I like to start with data, and I think data is a really important part of telling the story, and I actually really appreciated what Linda said about how people tell their stories and about what's happening. Some of the resources I'm going to put in your chat in a little bit are some of the things I'll go over in just a second. But one of the reasons why, and I think we all know that there is a huge housing crisis going on in the Bay Area, and that there is significant amounts of homeless folks who are desperately in need of more housing. So California Housing Partnerships is an organization located out of San Francisco. And annually they are doing this report, and I want to share it with you because there's some really important key findings. And this document is something that I use regularly when I brief the board members of the Board of Supervisors on what some of the housing problems are. So for instance, you know, we are in need of about 51,000 housing units that are affordable to very low income and extremely low income folks. And the reason why I point that out is because without those housing units, people who are of lower income are constantly at risk of becoming homeless. And it really only takes one emergency, one loss of job, or a healthcare crisis where you don't have healthcare insurance to cover it, or some emergency high cost thing that might happen to your household, and it could put your whole family at risk. And so I want to just share these numbers with you so you have some sense. So specifically, renters in Alameda County need to earn 3.5 times the minimum Oakland wage in order to afford what our current average rents are. And some of the funding sources that we have had in the past are gone now. And so it's harder for us to build affordable housing. Here are some more really important things. You can see here that funding for housing has increased in some areas, but decreased in others. So for instance, redevelopment went away in 2011, and redevelopment on an annual basis in Alameda County from all of the redevelopment agencies was spending $57 million a year on affordable housing. So if you look at that over 10 years, because it's now been 10 years, that's $580 million that was not invested in affordable housing in the last 10 years. That is a significant hit to our system for housing low-income folks. Some of the increases that have happened, however, is the low-income housing tax credit. There was an increase of that in the last few years. And so we can see that some of this stuff works better, but to get low-income housing tax credits into Alameda County is actually a competition. And so what we can get and bring into Alameda County, we have to compete for at the state level. So it's not always money that we can get our hands on. So again, some of the really important cost burden issues, if you are extremely low income, and extremely low income means people that are at 30% of area median income, you are paying significantly more in rent than you can actually afford. And what you can see here is that the cost burden households are almost 85% of them are cost burdened if you're extremely low income. And they're generally paying, 70% of their income towards their housing, which leaves almost no money for food or anything else. Again, we need 51,000 affordable housing units in Alameda County. And then here's some wages that I think are really important for you all to know about. A construction worker makes about $26 an hour. And what it takes to afford housing is $45 an hour. So even when you're looking at someone who we would think would have a living wage, it really isn't a living wage. And when you start looking at retail salesperson, childcare workers, janitors, and cleaners, it's even significantly more worse. So this is why homelessness has become such an issue. The cost of housing has gone through the roof since the foreclosure crisis of 2008. And what we see here is that our normal everyday people who we need in our community, we need retail clerks, we need cashiers at grocery stores, we need people to work in our hospitals. We have to have those people doing the jobs that support our world and our economy. And yet they don't make enough money to live here. So what you see is those folks are at risk of becoming homeless or have become homeless, even though they have jobs. And then just again, the cost of living here is so significant. It takes about $76,000 a year to live in Alameda County comfortably. And you can see the breakdown, transportation, childcare, healthcare, food, and housing at 34%. And that's a normal amount. I'm going to share this resource with you in your chat. There are definite policy recommendations that come out of CHPC every year. But the reason why I share all of that is because when you're telling the housing story and why housing has become such an important thing, lots of folks just go, well, why don't they just go get a job? Well, they can't just go get a job because even if they are working, that job isn't going to afford the rent. And so why are people homeless? Most folks are homeless because of an economic impact and because they just can't afford the rent. And so if you've lost a job or if you're just struggling to maintain the job that you have that doesn't pay enough, you can become homeless or you have become homeless. And once you're out on the streets, there's all kinds of other things that start happening. It becomes really difficult for you to maintain your sobriety. It becomes very difficult for you not to become addicted to drugs or alcohol. You will definitely have some mental health issues. So it's really difficult. Folks generally think that the people who become homeless are homeless because of drug addiction, or they're homeless because they've become alcoholics. But in reality, the real reason is because of an economic impact to their home, into their household, and they've lost their ability to pay their rent. So what is the solution? The only solution to homelessness is a house that you can afford. A home that you can afford. And so what we need is more housing. California, as most of us know, have been significantly behind in the building of affordable housing and housing across the board. Historically, building new housing works great for the homeownership world because the cost of construction and the cost of putting the whole development together generally can be recouped from the sale of the home. And so in the for sale side, even though prices have continued to go up, there are still people who can buy that house and cover the cost. On the rental side, that's not the case. We have seen for the first time in a very long time, a run up of new rental construction. And I'd say that the last 8 years have been the biggest boom of rental housing construction than I've seen in the last 50 years. The last time we had that kind of construction of rental housing was the 1960s and early 70s, last century, when I was a child. Why is that? The reason for that is because essentially, when you turn around and rent the units out, the income that you earn off of those rents to pay the cost of construction doesn't support it. So the debt that it took to build that unit cannot be supported by rents because the market rate rents were too low. In the last 10 years, we've seen an increase in market rate rents. They've gone straight through the roof. And now we see the ability to cover the cost of construction with rents that are at $4,000 and $5,000 a month. So we have a ton of new units on the market at $4,000 and $5,000 a month per unit. That's what's going to support the debt that it took to build that unit. And there's not a lot of people that can actually afford that rent. So we are actually seeing a lot of those units take a really long time to rent up. How do we house the homeless? We find a way to cover the cost of rent. And we have to come up with subsidy that would allow us to get someone into a unit at 30% of their actual income, which is often SSI, and then pay the difference between that $400 a month and the $1,800 a month or so that it would take to get them into a studio unit. Because yes, a studio unit is about $2,000 a month. A 1-bedroom is about $2,400 a month. A 2-bedroom is about $3,000 a month. A 3-bedroom is about $3,500 to $4,000 a month. So that's not in the new construction world. That's just those old aged housing stock that we've had for a long time. So if the issue is really cost, then the most important thing we can do is find a source of income that will help us. In the 1980s, before President Reagan came in, HUD had probably 3 to 4 times the annual budget that it has now. Those funds, almost all of them, went into the Section 8 housing program and provided people with the type of subsidy that I'm talking about. That subsidy doesn't exist anymore. And so how do we find it? The Alameda County has a ballot measure out right now. It's going to be on the November election. And it is to provide funding for homeless housing. And it is specific to, a big chunk of it is specifically meant to go directly towards rental assistance, the type of assistance I'm talking about. So what's really critical for people who are homeless is assistance in paying their rent. And that's the reason why they became homeless. And it is the #1 thing we can do to get them housed. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, who we have running the chat? I think we got the chat.
I've got questions.
All right.
Okay. So Lorna wants to know if the cost of housing construction is driven by labor, materials, and municipal fees and compliance, how can the cost be more in line with what's affordable?
A really good question. And yes, labor is one of the largest costs of construction. There's also the cost of the land. And, you know, supply and demand is how we size our labor market. So I'm not sure that there are really any governmental controls that can be established to cover those, to reduce those costs. Some of the things that we do have control about in the governmental world is the fees that we charge. And there's actually plenty of local governments who are waiving their planning and building fees. But there are impact fees that can't be waived because those impact fees are not necessarily charged by the local planning department. The school district is an impact fee. There's a park fee. There's a fee for East Bay Mud. There's a fee for PG&E. There's a fee for everything. And why are there fees for all those things? There's fees for all those things because there isn't a capital improvement program embedded in their budgets and they're not covering their own costs. And so they turn around for new construction and they charge new construction for future development or improvements to their systems. And that's just the structure that exists across almost all of our utility districts. We could talk about that separately because that's not really what this is about, but it is definitely an issue.
Thanks. Danny Mai asked what your proposal is in replacement of Section 8 or versus Section 8.
Versus Section 8. So the ballot measure that we have on the ballot right now, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the number, the letter, is it W? I think it's W. Basically what will happen is there'll be a significant amount of money raised from sales tax revenue, and that money will be set aside for homeless programs, and we will establish a rental subsidy program that the county will administer and provide to landlords who are willing to take someone in who has been homeless. And that will be one of many programs that we will be running with those dollars, including services, and helping people to stay housed is a really critical component of that.
Well, the questions are really coming in. Okay, I'll try to get to them quickly. Sam Miller wants to know, what's the best way to get the greatest, I think it just scrolled off my screen.
What's the best way to get the greatest number of units built?
Length of time.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Can you say it again?
What's the best way to get the greatest number of units built in the shortest length of time?
Yeah, so land is a really, it's a really dwindling resource. And so frankly, I think that the most important, and this is a personal opinion, is to put as many units on every plot of land that we can. There's lots of folks who don't want to see us grow that much, but that's frankly what I think we need to do, because we have a very large population. We don't have enough housing units. So I believe very strongly in multifamily housing. I believe in building new multifamily housing at a high density. However, that's not very fast. And so what is the fastest way to house the homeless in the immediate moment? It's things like tiny homes projects, or camping cabins, or creating, taking that local land that is not being used and creating a safe place for them to camp. Those are the fastest ways that we can actually get things done. However, I would say that in the long run, that's not a permanent home. And so we do want to continue to build more tall, big, affordable housing projects, and market rate with affordable built in, like inclusionary housing, putting more of them in those types of buildings, because you can get higher density, get more people served.
So Anna Marie Jones wants to know, what are the best actions for Rotarians to take to help with this issue?
So I think one of the most important things to do is to become well-versed in some of the issues around homelessness. And I'll, again, put some of those resources into your chat boxes, because I think that most people don't understand why folks have become homeless. And there's a lot of anger, and there's a lot of misconceptions. And so being really smart thinking people in our community who are responsible to the local community and have a vision of giving back, which is what I've seen from this meeting, it is so important that you carry with you an understanding and the compassion, and you help to educate other people as to why this is a problem. And I think very strongly that people don't choose to be homeless, and circumstances happen in your life that put you more at risk. And there, but for the grace of God go I, is how I look at it almost every day. And I feel like I've been very fortunate, and I think that it's really important for all of us to be thinking about how we can be compassionate, and sharing that view with people in everyday conversations is probably one of the most impactful things you can do, because most folks have no idea what struggles exist and how hard it is to solve this problem.
And on that topic, Linda Hamilton is asking, are homeless folks able to get back on their feet when they are securely housed? And then are there stats on that? Do they still need additional services, like dealing with the mental stress that occurred?
Yeah, so services are critical, and services actually do help people recover. And we see what we have seen is that not only does it help people recover, but it has a dramatic impact on our local government's costs. So right now, if you think about what happens to somebody who's homeless, who's out on the streets, and they become injured, they end up in the emergency room. And so the cost to society for not providing housing is actually more expensive than to build the housing. And so part of what's happening right now in Alameda County is we are attempting to find a way to use other resources to house people, and to actually take funding from the healthcare system and house folks, and then see a savings in the healthcare system, to take money from the jail system and put people in housing and then save money because we're not spending as much money on the jails. These are actually huge initiatives, and it's also like moving a ship while it's en route. Turning that ship is really hard. So there are some really smart people in the county who are working on it, and I'm really excited to be able to work with them. Carrie Abbott is actually our new director of homeless care and coordination, and she works for healthcare. And she's doing an amazing job of helping us to have a bigger vision and find a way to take those resources. But yes, people can escape homelessness, and they can become successful in their lives. And our system sees savings when that happens. So it's a really good thing.
Tom Lamone is asking, what strategies could help lenders support homeowners with equity in their home, support or promote the production of ADUs?
I'm a big fan of ADUs. So there are now a lot of new laws out there that allow homeowners to build ADUs. And I think the actual problem around ADUs has more to do with the individual homeowner's capacity to go out and do a development project in their backyard. I'm a homeowner. I've been in housing since 1989 when I started doing property management. I don't know how to build a ADU in my backyard, and I've been in the housing industry for 30 years. So how is that little old lady who owns her home and maybe her husband has passed and she's on a fixed income, and the best thing for her would be to build something in her backyard or convert part of her house into a separate unit that she could rent out and now increase her income? What's the best way to help her get an ADU? And I actually think that the best way to do it is through technical assistance. And so having people, having an organization that can go out there and help them vision what they want to build, help them connect to contractors, help them connect to the lender that's going to help them get a loan to build this thing. That's probably the best thing. San Mateo County has a program like this. I'm trying to bring it to the unincorporated county. Oakland could also do this as well, but it's called Bright in Your Backyard, and I'll put a link to that in the chat as well.
Great, thank you. And Georgia Richardson, who met you recently through Supervisor Nate Miley, is asking, do you think Proposition 21, which is another version of Prop 10 that was defeated in the last election, will discourage new construction?
I'm sorry, I don't know a lot about that law, and so I can't answer that question, but I'll go look into it, Georgia. Thank you for asking.
Great, thank you.
There's a lot of new laws out there.
And Winter Williams is asking, what are your thoughts on FEMA trailer projects, and can you share any observations about past or existing projects that have gone well or have been problematic?
Well, I think one of the most important problems with a project that has not gone well is that it is under-resourced. It doesn't have enough money. A lot of the homeless housing that we've built in the last 20 years, we've built using HUD funding. And that program that allowed us to build those fundings never allowed for COLAs or increases. So a project that was built in 1995 that's still housing someone who's homeless hasn't seen an increase to the grant that helps them support the cost of operating the unit. So what you see is that there's just not enough money in that system, because how much does it cost you to run your house? You have to pay your electricity bill, you have to pay your garbage, maintenance on the unit happens. I'm sorry, you got to replace your roof every 20 years or so, right? There are costs associated with owning and operating housing. And if there's not enough money in that homeless housing system, they can't actually pay their bills. And then that project starts to go upside down. And that's one of the key things that I have seen. The other critical thing for a homeless project, specifically a homeless project, is there has to be sufficient resource for services. And so services is really critical, because you need to assist someone who has been in extreme trauma. They can't imagine living out on the streets and not being traumatized by that experience. They need time, and they need a person to help them go from being in that traumatized state to recovering and to being able to give back to society, whether that's in a job or volunteering, but they've got to recover. And so that recovery takes time, and it takes resources, and it takes services. And services include everything from life skills. This is how you get a job. This is how you manage money. This is how you, keep your house clean. And resource and services like this is how you get access to Social Security dollars. This is how you get job training. This is how you get yourself a job. And so these are all things that, it takes a local investment of public subsidy and local government dollars to make that work.
Ken Richardson wants to know, are there any programs that help homeless individuals get repatriated with their out-of-state families?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've done is we've funded a number of nonprofits, and some of them actually have those kinds of programs. So I know BACS in Oakland, through the Housing Resource Center that the county has helped to fund and the city of Oakland has helped to fund, actually has a program where when there is someone who actually has family and there's a, there's a case manager who will reach out to the family, whether that family is local, out of town, out of county, out of state, doesn't really matter. They're reaching out to the family to say, we have your aunt here, we have your sister here. She wants to recover. She's been homeless for a number of years. Would you take her in and help her reestablish herself? I can't give you any statistics on how those programs work and whether or not there have been many folks, but I did hear some stories back in March that BACS was sharing at one of our meetings where they had talked about how that had been effective for those folks who have family members who are willing to take their family back.
Abel Guillen has a few questions. He's asking, are there other incentives for landlords or advocacy to help increase the supply of Section 8 unit subsidies, or are they all subscribed? And he's also saying there are tons of new units in the market now, many vacant, and developers are offering free rent for 2 months or more as an incentive, but rental rates remain high. And will there be an equilibrium, and at what point?
That's a lot of good questions. Almost all of our Section 8 housing programs are completely oversubscribed, and the wait lists are upwards of 3 or 5 years. So I don't know of a single program that doesn't have a wait list. I do know that there are people who have a voucher, but they can't find a unit. And the reason that that's an issue is because the federal government sets a cap on what that rent price can be, and our rents are higher than that. So it actually takes quite a bit of scrounging in the housing market to find a unit that meets that cap. And so the most important thing is for someone who is interested in helping people is to offer rents to Section 8 clients, voucher clients, and say, hey, I'll rent to you at the fair market cap. And that would be a huge benefit. And it's generally $300 to $500 below what our market rate rents are. So a private landlord would have to agree to take less income. And that's a choice. It's not one that's very popular. And so since it's not popular, you don't see a lot of landlords choosing to take less money. But we've had such a run up in prices that for those who actually have mortgages that are much lower, it would be a great benefit if they could do that. With regards to the number of private market rate units that are out there right now, and they are vacant, and they are because we are seeing that in order for those property owners to cover that building costs, as I described, they have to rent those units for a really high price. They're willing to take the first 2 months off, but that doesn't change the fact that in that third or fourth month, the price goes way back up again. And since the price goes way back up, you're right back in that situation of who can pay that. And, let's just take the unemployed homeless individual off the table. Can your teacher afford that? Can your, grocery store clerk afford that? Can the person who's running the radiology equipment at Kaiser afford that? I would hazard a guess that most of them cannot. And since that's the case, what will happen is that some of those prices are going to have to eventually come down. Those property owners, though, are leveraged. And what does that mean to the financial market? Because the way housing is generally built nowadays is you get a developer comes in, they use their equity that they have within their company, they build the property, and then they try and put a mortgage on it. That first lender is basically looking for a stabilized income, and they want to make sure it's occupied. And so that developer can't get their money back out until the property is stabilized. And that's why they're offering 2, 3, 4 months of free rent, because they want people in that building so that they can say to that lender, hey, I got 95% occupancy, come take out my equity. So that's the incentive for the 3 to 4 months off of rent.
Okay, we got time for one more question. Why don't you take Elitas Skolas?
Yeah, that was a great question. Let me scroll down and find it. It is, I've spoken to every city, county, and local interested person about this. Nope, that's not her question.
Yes, it is.
Was that the one?
That's her second question.
Okay, the first one, sorry. I have a business on Grand Avenue with violent, unhoused people camping out on our street, preventing customers from entering our businesses. What can we do to stay in business and pay taxes to support services?
Yeah, it's really important that you get a hold of your local police department and establish a relationship and ask them what they can do to help you. In Alameda County, in the unincorporated area, we have several sheriff's department officers, and that's not in Oakland. So I don't know the Oakland Police Department well, but in the sheriff's department, we have very specific people who go out to homeless encampments. They talk to their to our unhoused population, and they basically try and establish a relationship. And that's what we would want to see from any law enforcement. We want them to approach the situation with care and concern, and we'd want them to have the empathy that's needed, and we would want them to, help you deal with the obstacles that are happening. But again, I'm also seeing someone else say, talk to your council person, because frankly, that's a political issue, and the city council needs to put pressure on the police to do that, just like Supervisor Miley, who is the main supervisor for the unincorporated areas where there is a large homeless population. He puts a lot of pressure on our sheriff's department to work collaboratively and compassionately with the homeless. So it is definitely a political thing as well.
Thank you, Michelle. We're running out of time here, but thank you so much for being our speaker for today.
Thank you for having me, and I will put those, I don't know if you guys can access the group chat afterwards, but I'll try and put the resources in there.
Yes, we do.
Great.
We copy off everything we have in there. This year, our club is making homeless crisis in Oakland a priority. To that end, and as a gift to you for being our speaker for the day, in your honor, we are making a donation to support our unhoused residents in Oakland. Additionally, we would like to give you our centennial book, which documents 100 years of service and friendship in the third oldest club in the Rotary world, Oakland #3, written by our very own sponsor for the day, Rotarian Linda Hamilton.
Way, thank you very much. That's amazing. Thank you. And I'm greatly, greatly and deeply appreciative of the donation.
Thank you. Finally, next week, wait a minute, Rotarian David Kirsten, do we have any bell ringers? I should ask in case anybody else bell ring for this.
Yeah, the Ces, President Ces, the bell ringers, we have Kimberly Cohn ×2, Anna Marie Jones, and Ed Jellin, and I believe you already saw those folks, but if there are any additional, let me know, folks. Thank you.
That was 2 extra than what I really rang, so we got 4.
Great.
Finally,
there's Lorna Padilla.
Lorna Padilla, one more. Finally, next week, we have a very special meeting. Our Civic Thursday meeting will be held on Wednesday, October 7th at 3 p.m. Why this unique day and hour? Well, we have a joint meeting with Rotary Clubs of Chicago, #1, San Francisco, #2, Oakland, #3, Seattle, #4, and Los Angeles, #5, better known as the First Five Club. This meeting will be hosted by Eric Simple, the president of Chicago 1, and it will introduce us to a joint service project that we are taking on as a collaborative group to address our respective homeless situation. While the meeting will be informative and exciting meeting, I'm particularly excited to have as our speaker, Jennifer Jones. As we learned a few months ago, Jennifer Jones is a member of Rotary Club of Windsor, Ontario, Canada, and has been nominated to become Rotary's International President for 2023, a groundbreaking selection that will make her the first woman to hold the office of the organization's 115-year history. Jones will be officially become president nominee on, guess what, October 1 today, if no other candidate challenges her, which we'll get through. Well, guess what today is, October 1st. She is now officially the Rotarian International's first female president for 2023. And we are fortunate that she has agreed to have her first major appearance as nominee at our first 5 club meeting. I'd like to think this is another in our series of high profile speakers I promised you at the beginning of the year. So tell your Rotary friends that our Civic Thursday meeting on Wednesday next week will be very special this week. And it's a must attend event. It's going to be special. Remember, it's on Wednesday, October 7th at 3 p.m. And Pat will send out registration details to everybody. Thank you, Pam, for the thought for the day. Congratulations, Emily and Bryan, for your blue badges. Welcome, new Rotarian Stephen. Thank you, John, for updating us on Kinderprep activities. And thank you, Sonia, for introducing our speaker. And finally, a big thank you to Linda, our sponsor for this meeting. So I'd like to end this meeting as usual, and that's the way it went on 5,311th club meeting, October 1st, 2020, at Oakland Rotary number 3, third oldest Rotary club in the world. Everybody remember, Rotary opens opportunity for service above self, and for now, this meeting is adjourned.